Next topic is milling machine. So milling machine ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ milling machine introduction, principle of milling machine, types of milling machine operation. ಇಷ್ಟು ಸಿಲೆಬಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. DCET ನಲ್ಲಿ milling machine 1 marks ಗೆ ಬರುವಂತ ಟಾಪಿಕ್. Milling is a machining operation which the excess of material from the workpieces is removed by a rotating multi-point cutting tool, called as milling cutter. A milling machine is a machine tool that removes the metal as the work feed against the rotating multi-point cutter. Observe ಮಾಡಿ, the multi-point cutter is very important. Milling machine normally uses multi-point cutter, but lathe uses single point cutter. Okay, so the milling cutter rotates high speed and it removes the metal at very faster rate to the help of multiple cutting edges. For comparison of the lathe and milling, milling removes materials very fast because it consisting multi-point cutting edges. One or more member of the cutter can be mounted simultaneously on the milling machine. This is the reason that milling machine finds wide application is production work. It is used to machining flat surface, contoured surface, external surface and internal surfaces. Milling machine, as the workpiece moves against the cutting edges of the milling cutter, metal is removed from the chips. Machined surfaces form one or more passes of the work. The work to be machined is held in a vise or rotary table. The three-jaw checker, index head, and the special fixtures or bolted machine to be used for the purpose of mounting the cutting tools. In many applications, due to higher production rate and accuracy, milling machine has even replaced shaper and slaughter. In many applications, due to higher production rate and accuracy, milling machine has even replaced shaper and slaughter. Slaughter ಮತ್ತೆ shapers ಗಳನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. Sometime higher accuracy ಬೇಕು, production rate ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ milling machine ನ replace ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. Milling machine application. Different types of components ಗಳು. ನೋಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ different types of shapes ಗಳು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಸರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಮೆಷಿನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಮಿಷಿನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಡೌಟೆಲ್ ಶೇಪ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಮಿಷಿನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಈ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ, ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಮಿಷಿನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಈ ರೀತಿ ಚಾನಲ್ ಶೇಪ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಮಿಷಿನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ, ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ನ ರಿಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಮಿಷಿನ್. ವೈಡ್ ರೇಂಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ 2 ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು ಹಪ್ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್, ಅನದರ್ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಡೌನ್ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್. ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ DCET ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಹಪ್ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡೌನ್ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಹಪ್ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಎಸ್ ಕನ್ವೆನ್ಷನಲ್ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತಾನು ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮೆಟಲ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಮೂವ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಕಟರ್. Hub milling, metal is removed by cutter rotating against the direction of travel of the workpieces. Metal is removed by the cutter rotating against. Up milling ನಲ್ಲಿ against ಬರುತ್ತೆ, down milling ನಲ್ಲಿ same ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Against the direction of travel of the workpiece and need stronger holding of the job. Against ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ವೈಬ್ರೇಷನ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ನೀಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗರ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಜಾಬ್. ಜಾಬ್ ಅನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು. ದ ಚಿಪ್ ಥಿಕ್ನೆಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ಅಟ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಕಟ್, ದ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಅಟ್ ದಿ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಕಟ್. ಹಪ್ ಮಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಚಿಪ್ ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ಥಿಕ್ನೆಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಥಿಕ್ನೆಸ್ ಗೆ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಡಿಸ್ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್, ಟೆಂಡೆನ್ಸಿ ಟು ಲಿಫ್ಟ್ ದ ವರ್ಕ್ ವಿತ್ ದ ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷರ್, ದ ಪೂರ್ ಸರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಫಿನಿಶ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಹೈ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಜನರೇಟೆಡ್ ಡ್ಯೂ ಟು ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದ ವರ್ಕ್ ಪೀಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದಿ ಕಟಿಂಗ್ ಟೂಲ್. In the hub milling, one of the major disadvantages is lift work from the fixture. This is the conventional milling, or sometimes called as hub milling. When workpiece is rotating, in this direction, but cutting tool will be fed against opposite to the workpiece rotating. This is called as hub milling. Both workpiece and cutting tool moves both are against with each other. Next, the thickness of metal removed. From starting of the metal, thickness of the chip removed minimum. When it attains at the final stage, thickness of the chips is maximum. It removes the metal from minimum to maximum in conventional milling or hub milling. Next one is a down milling, sometimes called as climb milling. So metal is removed by cutter rotating in the same direction of the trowel of the workpiece is called as down milling. The teeth cut downward instead of upward. The teeth moving downward. So it's called as down milling. The chip thickness is opposite, maximum at the starting, minimum at the end of the cut. So less friction is involved, better surface finish, and less power consumption compared to up milling. So this is the graphical representation. So rotation direction and moving of the workpiece both are same direction. The chip removed starting is maximum, at the end is a minimum. Climb milling. So climb milling, sometimes called as down milling. Principle of milling. So workpiece feed against the cutter. So this is a conventional milling. So and another one is a climb milling. This is conventional and climb milling. Both are same direction. Observe here. So but here both are in opposite direction. This is opposite nature. So types of milling machine. So milling machines is broadly classified based on the sizes and material removal rate. So distance of the column and knee type milling machine is one of the oldest machine. Column and knee type. So next one is the planar milling machine, fixed bed type milling machine, special type of milling machine. So this is the four broadly classified. The principal parts of the milling machine. So normally every milling machine is consisting base. Base is normally made up of cast iron. So base supports all other parts of the milling machine. So column. So column is a vertical member which supports the knee, table and workpiece like this. And the column is normally supporting of the another rotating members in a milling machine. So knee is normally which hold the workpiece. So saddle which holds the spindle. So table workpiece can be placed above the table by using the T-slots or different types of fixtures. The spindle will be connected to the cutting tool. When spindle is started rotating, the cutting tool is directly occupied with the spindle. The workpiece can be rotated. So spindle and cutting tool. So both are coupled each other. So column and knee type of milling machine, one of the oldest milling machine and a popular milling machine is column and knee type. It's the most commonly used milling machine used for the general workshop. The table is mounted on the knee, which is mounted on a vertical slides of the main column. The knee is a vertical adjustable. The column is that the table is moved up and down accommodated to the various heights. So this is called as a knee. Knee can be moved up and down. So that means work job or workpiece also can be moved up and down. So because the workpiece can be placed above the table. Okay. So classification of column and knee type of milling machine. So further classification of the column and knee type. So one is a hand milling machine, horizontal milling machine, universal milling machine, vertical milling machine. So these are the different types of column and knee type of milling machine. So horizontal milling machine. Horizontal milling machine uses parallel to the shop floor. So overcome the extent over the workpiece. So our arm supports the harbor which holds the milling cutter. On the horizontal mill, the harbor is the component that rotates the milling cutter. So this is the overarm, harbor brackets and harbor cutting tool. So this is the harbor. So very important part is harbor. This part is called as the harbor. Harbor which connects the yoke. This is called as a yoke and column. Yoke is supporting to the arm and the harbor. So normally cutting tool is to be placed on the harbor, the help of harbor. Okay, so this is called as a knee or supporting table. So this is called as knee. This is called as the table with some slates, T slots. So this is machine wise can be placed here. It's a cutting tool, the multi-point cutting tool. So rotates against a job. This is an example of horizontal milling machine. So harbor is our main important part in the milling machine. Harbor nuts, spacers and milling cutter. Vertical milling machine. Spindle is vertical, perpendicular to the work table. It is all the movement of the table proportioning and feeding the work. The spindle head may be swiveled at an angle. Some machine spindle can also adjustable. So adapting machine grooves, slots and flat surfaces producing. So this is an vertical milling machine. So base, column and spindle. So next one, difference between horizontal and vertical milling machine. The spindle is horizontal, the spindle is vertical. So this is the main difference between horizontal and vertical milling machine. Cutter can be moved up and down. So cutter can be moved up and down. Cutter can be moved up and down. So here also same. Cutter cannot be moved up and down here. Cutter can be moved up and down. So cutter moving only for horizontal direction here. Cutter is mounted on the harbor. Cutter is directly mounted on the spindle. So this is the major difference. Cutter is mounted on the harbor and cutter is directly mounted on the spindle in vertical milling machine. Spindle cannot be tilted here, but the spindle can be tilted some angular cutting. Some operations such as plane milling, gear cutting, form milling, operations such as slot milling, anti-slot milling, angular milling, so on the flat milling can be performed very easily. So universal milling machine, I think universal milling is a combination of both vertical and horizontal milling machine. Difference from plain horizontal milling machine, addition table swivel housing permits table 45 degree in either direction horizontal plane used for milling. Fixed bed type milling. So comparatively large, heavy, rigid and difference of column and knee type milling machine, the table is directly mounted on the fixed bed. No provision to provide the cross vertical adjustable table. The cutter mounted on the spindle head and to be moved vertical on the column and spindle may be adjustable. Horizontal provide cross adjustable. Three types: simplex milling machine, duplex milling machine and triplex milling machine. So in fixed bed type milling machine, the bed is fixed. It cannot be moved. So but cutting tool can be adjustable here. So this is the fixed bed type milling machine. So normally fixed bed type milling machine is preferred for heavy work. It cannot be used for small work. It can be used for heavy work only. Next to planar milling machine. So planar milling machine look like a double column planar machine. So milling head mounted on the various plane. So used to produce the plane surfaces. Special type of milling machine designed for individual milling operation, used only one particular type of job. Completely automatic, employed when hundreds and thousands of similar workpieces can be machined. The tracer milling, so profile milling is also possible using this milling machine. It's also called as a duplicated. It can be duplicated another components and designed to reproduce irregular part geometry that can be carried out in templates into two-dimensional tracer and three-dimensional duplicators. CNC milling machine is another special type of milling machine. So present today uses almost all CNC milling machines. So cutter path controlled milling machines suitable for profile, pocket and surface contouring milling machines. So milling operations are classified like this: plane milling machine, face milling machine, end milling machine, side milling machine, slot milling machine, angular milling machine, form milling machine, straddle milling machine. So plane milling is used to produce the flying surface only. The face milling, only operation can be carried on either right or left of the faces only. End milling, only it gets end of the workpieces. Side milling, to remove the material any one side of the workpieces. Slot milling, to produce the slots to remove the material. Angular milling machine, so to certain milling machine at an angle to remove the material. So form milling, to form the different types of shapes, so it's called as form milling. Straddle milling, so straddle means to remove the material at a particular shape, so it's called as straddle. Slotting saw milling machine, so gear cutting to formation of the gears. The slitting saw milling means, slitting means the part can be divided into two parts, is called as slitting. So keyway cutting, so to formation of the keyways. String cutting, string profile to generate the different types of profile. So thread cutting, so to formation of the threads. Helical milling, so this type of inclined milling operation is called as helical milling. Cam milling, so to production of the cams is called as cam milling. Plane or subplane plane, to get the flat surfaces of the workpiece in which the cutter axis is called as plane milling, using plane milling cutter. So